Heartwarming tale. Last female slave sold for $50. Discover the amazing truth that changed everything. Clara struggled to keep the tears at bay as she pried open the weathered cover of the journal. The dusty pages fluttered like the wings of a trapped bird, but she felt an electric jolt at the thought of what was hidden within. The voice of her great-great-grandmother, a woman sold for just $50. The weight of history pressed upon her chest, a relentless ache that tangled with the sweet smell of fabric in her quilt shop. In the small southern town of Willow Creek, excitement bubbled for the centennial celebration, but Clara felt only the sobering truth of her roots. She felt the eyes of her ancestors on her, guiding her, urging her to understand their journey. As she read through the journal, Clara found herself walking alongside them through a world of pain and resilience. Her great-great-grandmother had penned each word with hope threaded between the lines, a testament to the love that had endured across generations. There they were, sewing their dreams together, stitch by stitch, as they navigated the darkness of their lives. The warm fabric of the quilts hung around Clara, almost singing a soft lullaby of courage, and that made her heart swell with admiration. Yet, paralleling her family's legacy of strength was Clara's own modern struggle. The looming threat of foreclosure cast long shadows over her quaint shop. As bills piled up, the echo of her hopes clashed against an all-too-real adversary: rising costs and economic inequality. In a town bustling with anticipation, Clara worried that her dreams were slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. The vibrant energy around her felt like a cruel juxtaposition to her own nagging uncertainty. Just when uncertainty had begun to drown her spirit, the townsfolk surprised Clara with an outpouring of support. They poured into her shop, hands clasped together, working to create a massive quilt that would represent unity during the centennial celebration. Their kindness cradled her soul like a gentle embrace. But as they stitched, old prejudices began to creep in, revealing buried tensions that left Clara uneasy. She wondered if she could truly accept their help while being painfully aware of the shadows hovering above her family's history. With her heart in her throat, Clara approached the eve of the celebration. Each fabric surrounding her told a story. The vibrant colors and textures painted a canvas of perseverance, but her thoughts danced around a nagging truth. She knew her family's painful past wasn't exclusive to her. It echoed through the town, uniting them in a shared struggle against the ingrained injustices of their past. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the celebration just hours away, Clara faced a reckoning. Would she rise to reveal the truth buried within her family's history, acknowledging the tapestry of pain and resilience threading through the town's heart? Or would she guard her carefully crafted world, risking the fragile unity they had formed? Just as clarity began to dawn, a visitor appeared at her door, bearing secrets that could tear the fabric of her life apart. Would love and forgiveness find a way to mend the wounds that time had left open? Clara stood on the brink, unsure of what lay ahead, but knowing that whatever happened next could change everything. The door creaked open, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. A figure stood silhouetted against the fading light, a tall man with a familiar contour and a demeanor that emanated unease. It was Jack, her childhood friend. They had lost touch over the years, lives taking them in different directions. His return felt unexpected, like an echo from the past. But the worry etched on his face suggested that this was no ordinary visit. "Clara," he started, his voice low and shaky, "I need to talk to you." Fear gripped her. His eyes searched hers, revealing a storm of emotions beneath the surface. She stepped aside, beckoning him in, not knowing whether bad memories or shared history might unfold. The light from the window caught the deep lines of concern marking his forehead. She sensed the weight of his secret before he even spoke. Inside, the quilt shop felt smaller, every fabric square holding the warmth of her intentions and the laughter of the townsfolk. But Jack's presence shifted the atmosphere, reminding Clara of the shadows she tried to dispel. "You remember the story I told you?" he asked, his tone grave. "About the history of the town, the hidden truths that run deeper than what we learned in school?" Clara nodded, the past flickering to life in her mind. The stories of injustice intertwined with their community's pride. "I've found something. Papers, letters, hidden in my grandfather's attic. They reveal things that could change how we see everything here." Her heart raced. What kind of things? He shifted uneasily. About families that remained in power after the war, and how they benefited from the suffering of those before us, even our own. It's more complicated than just the past. It's about how those injustices still impact us, how they thread through our lives today. The echo of his words rattled in her mind, filling her with dread and confusion. Would unveiling these truths help heal the community? Or would it unravel everything they had just begun to knit together? Clara felt as if she stood on a precipice, the enormity of Jack's revelation pulling her deeper into a sea of possibility and peril. "I don't know if I can bear this burden, Jack," she whispered, the weight of her family's legacy crashing against an uncertain future. "What if revealing this truth drives us apart instead of uniting us?" Jack stepped closer, his expression softening. "It's hard, but sometimes the truth is what binds us, even when it hurts. If we hide from it, it will fester and continue to divide us along silent lines." Tears prickled her eyes. She thought of the quilt, of the shared labor and love it represented. "And if we don't get it right?" He sighed, the gravity of their task palpable in the air between them. "Then we keep fighting, Clara, not just for ourselves, but for all those who came before us." His words echoed in her heart, prompting a swell of courage deep within her. Here stood a crossroads, a chance to lead, to embrace the pain instead of shying away from it. She felt a flicker of resolve. As she looked into Jack's eyes, a fire ignited within her. "We have to tell the truth, no matter how hard it is." With that conviction, Clara knew their mission was about to change everything. But as they prepared to uncover the layers of history buried beneath their town, the question hung in the air. Would the truth they unveiled lead to reconciliation, or would it threaten to tear them apart once more? She glanced at the quilt, a reminder of unity they had fought for. The uncertainty loomed, daring them to step forward. And as the preparations for the centennial celebration continued, Clara's heart raced. What deeper secrets lay waiting to be uncovered, and who would embrace the result of their revelation? Clara glanced the bright patchwork quilt in her hands, letting the vibrant colors wash over her. Each stitch seemed to pulse with the laughter and love of the community, a reminder of the good that had thrived even through difficult times. But now, looming ahead of her, were the secrets Jack had laid bare. She felt torn. Where was the line between loyalty to the past and the duty to reveal the truth? "Let's go to your grandfather's attic," she suggested, her voice firmer than she felt. "We need to see these letters for ourselves." Jack hesitated, his brow furrowing. "You're sure? What if it's more than we can handle?" She shook her head, determination settling in her heart. "We need to face this together. If these hidden truths impact our lives, we can't wait any longer to shine a light on them." The sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting a warm glow that barely penetrated the cluttered attic. Clara felt as if they had stepped back in time, dust motes dancing in the air. Old wooden beams creaked under their weight as they climbed the narrow staircase. Descending into the past, her heart pounded with anticipation. Jack rummaged through stacks of boxes, his hands moving with a desperate urgency. The sounds of rustling papers filled the silence, and Clara caught herself holding her breath. What stories lay hidden in those letters? What lives had been altered by unseen hands? Finally, he produced a weathered box. "Here it is, the letters, and some other things too," he said, a hint of disbelief coloring his voice. They sat on the floor, the chill of the attic creeping through the floorboards as Jack opened the box. Clara leaned in, her heartbeat matching the rhythm of her curiosity. Each piece of yellowed paper felt like a fragile connection to a world she barely understood. "What do you see?" she asked, leaning closer. Jack unfolded the first letter, his voice trembling as he read aloud. "This one is dated back to the 1860s. It's a plea for justice, written by a woman named Mary Ellen. She talks about the local landowners, the families that held power, yet the struggles of those who served them." Clara listened, her stomach nodding at the realization that their town's history was steeped in pain. Each line revealed snippets of heartache, whispers of a community silenced, a history that demanded acknowledgement. Jack's fingers moved to the next letter, but he hesitated. "Clara, what if we're responsible for igniting something we can't control? This could unravel everything we love about our town." "Or it could stitch it back together," she countered gently. "Think about it. The quilt symbolizes unity, not ignorance. If we confront our history together, we can heal. But we must decide what direction our town takes." He looked at her, and the weight of his worry gave way to a glimmer of understanding. "You're right. Facing the truth together can inspire change, but I can't help but worry about the impact." Clara inhaled deeply, hope flickering in her chest. "We'll do this as a community, Jack. We'll share these stories, not just to expose, but to educate and lift each other up. We can't be afraid of our roots anymore." "Are you sure?" he asked again, searching her face. She nodded, her determination solidifying. "We owe it to everyone who suffered. It's time to tell the truth and start healing." As they began discussing how to share the letters with the community, Clara felt her heart race. They were on the edge of something monumental. Every word could spark change, and part of her feared the flames could be too hot to handle. But she also felt the thrumming excitement of possibility. Despite the challenges ahead, this was the moment they would transform their town's understanding of itself. Yet, as she prepared herself to push for the unveiling, a new question lingered. Would the community rise to embrace the truth or recoil from it? It was a leap of faith, but Clara was ready to jump. And as they stood in the dim light of the attic, the truth whispered around them, waiting to be spoken. What would happen when they finally shared it? Clara clutched the edge of the box, her fingers trembling as she watched Jack's face transform under the weight of the letter's revelations. It was as if he was peeling back layers of time, and each unveiling deepened a sense of urgency within Clara. They had to act, and soon. "Let's start with a small gathering," Clara suggested, her voice steadying. "Invite a few trusted friends, maybe some elders who've lived here long enough to remember. They might understand the depth of this." Jack nodded slowly. "That could work. We can gauge their reactions, see how much they're willing to confront." Clara felt the weight of his agreement settle comfortingly between them. Together, they began to put their plan into motion. Each letter they read thickened the air with an electric charge of unanswered questions and untold stories, imbuing the attic with a sense of duty. They were not just uncovering their heritage, they were crafting a narrative woven with hope and reality, ready to share it with their community. With each letter, Clara replayed the scenes in her mind, imagining the faces of their friends and neighbors as they listened to stories of hardship and resilience that had been tucked away for too long. What about that community center? We could gather there. It's a neutral ground, familiar yet open. Perfect, Jack replied, enthusiasm gradually blooming within him. We can make it a potluck. It'll take some pressure off. People love food. As they planned, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were teetering on the edge of a great awakening. They were stitching a collective tapestry, one that would connect every soul in their town through shared struggles. But with each stitch there was fear. Fear of resistance, fear of memories repressed, and worst of all, fear of discovery. What if the truth turned out to be more devastating than healing? A week later, they set up tables under the sprawling oak tree behind the community center. The scent of fried chicken and cornbread mingled with laughter as neighbors trickled in, curious about the gathering. Clara scanned the crowd, wondering if everyone felt the weight of the moment as she did. Jack stood next to her, visibly nervous, clutching one of the letters like a lifeline. "Are you ready?" Clara asked, sensing the tension coursing through him. Jack exhaled slowly, nodding. "I hope so. It feels like we're about to drop a bomb." "Maybe, but sometimes bombs bring change," she replied softly, giving his arm a reassuring squeeze. When the chatter died down and the circle formed, Clara stepped forward. Jack followed, holding the letter like a precious relic. Faces turned toward them, expectant yet guarded. She felt a swell of courage rise within her. Here was the essence of their community, imperfect and real, ready to confront the shadows of the past. "Thank you all for coming," Clara began, her voice steady. "What we're about to share may shake the foundations of the stories we've been told, but it's time we recognize the truth." She glanced at Jack, and he began to unfold the letter, the hesitant quiver in his hands betraying his nerves. As he read the words written over a century ago, Clara watched the faces of their neighbors shift. Eyes widened, and whispers of disbelief floated through the air like echoes of the past. Then came the murmurs, voices rising and twisting with confusion and anger. Where did this history come from? Why hadn't they known? Clara's heart raced as the atmosphere crackled with tension. "I knew about the past, but I never knew it was like this," one elder finally admitted, a tremor in her voice. "Why didn't someone tell us?" Another voice shot out from the crowd, demanding answers. Clara glanced at Jack, who was equally stunned. Their leap had landed them in the middle of a storm, and she understood that this was just the beginning. The truth was fragile, and it would take time to mend the wounds it exposed. As the conversation swirled around them, Clara realized that while they had opened the door to painful truths, they had also invited the possibility of healing. Perhaps it was time for a new quilt, a fresh patchwork filled with understanding and shared responsibility. But would they be ready to stitch their differences together, or would the rifts deepen? Clara took a deep breath as she saw some faces soften, yearning for change. Would the community embrace their shared history, or fight to protect the comfort of their past? Clara felt the questions loom overhead. It was a tense moment, suspended in time, and the answers floated somewhere just out of reach. Jack's voice broke the silence, quivering as it reached the gathered crowd. "We found this letter in my grandfather's attic," he said, glancing around at the sea of faces.
It's not just a piece of paper. It's a bridge to our past, one we can't ignore anymore. Clara watched as skepticism flickered across some faces, skepticism tangled with curiosity. She could feel the ripples of uncertainty in the air. It was a delicate moment, one that held the power to unite or splinter. Jack continued reading, his voice growing steadier with each word. With every sentence, he revealed stories of families torn apart, injustices that had been swept under the rug, and the persistent hope that flickered through generations. As the letter's history unfolded, Clara caught sight of an elder woman at the back. Mabel's brow was creased, and her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her cane. She'd lived in this town for over 70 years. Had she known the depth of the stories buried within her own community? The murmurs turned into a cacophony as Jack reached the letter's conclusion. It mentions young girls, women sold off like cattle. The last words, he paused, inhaling deeply as he leaned closer to the community, were about resilience. They survived, not just for themselves, but for us, for a future they couldn't see. Clara's heart pounded. Silence fell as the weight of Jack's words landed, heavy and haunting. Mabel stepped forward, her voice shaking but earnest. I remember my grandmother telling stories, but I thought they were just tales. I didn't know they were this real. A young man, skin glistening with sweat from the summer heat, crossed his arms. What do you expect us to do with this? Just sit here and wallow in guilt? Is that what you want? Jack met his gaze with quiet strength. No, that's not it. We can't forget, but we can learn. This isn't about assigning blame. It's about understanding. There's power in these stories. We can create a future that remembers, honors, and builds on what we've learned. The tension hung thick, the divide evident. Clara stepped into the conversation now, emboldened by what was unfolding around her. This isn't just about the past either. It's about how we move forward together. Healing can begin here, but only if we allow it. Her voice softened as she looked around at familiar faces, now full of uncertainty. We can choose to listen, to share our pain and our history. We owe it to those who came before us. A wind rustled through the oak trees overhead, the leaves whispering secrets of their own. Clara saw some shoulders relax, a few nods of agreement amid the uncertainty. The dialogue wasn't just becoming a tense debate, it was evolving into something deeper. As their neighbors mulled over Clara's words, the ground beneath them shifted slightly. A woman stepped forward, her face etched with lines of worry and regret. I lost my great-aunt to a fate like that, she admitted, her voice cracking. I didn't know her story until now. It just was heartbreaking. The murmurs of understanding spread like wildfire. Clara could feel a crack forming in the armor people wore, the spaces between them beginning to dissolve. Stories began to pour out, of loss, of regret, of hope. They shared moments of fear and defiance, laughs mingled with tears, weaving a new fabric for their community. But a simmering unease lingered, questions waiting to be asked. Clara sensed it in the air, thick and heavy. How would they proceed? How would the conversations evolve? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows, she glanced at Jack, and they shared a moment of mutual understanding. They had opened a Pandora's box, one that needed careful tending. The fear and the pain were real, but so was the possibility for growth. In that charged moment, Clara felt something shift. Could the vulnerability they uncovered lead to true connection? Her heart raced, filled with the unsettling excitement of what might come next. As she scanned the crowd, she couldn't ignore the looming questions. Would this new openness lead to lasting change, or would it spark a backlash that threatened to tear them apart again? The weight of uncertainty hung just overhead. They were standing at the precipice of transformation, just one step away.
A choice that could either unite them or deepen the divide. The sun slid behind the horizon, its warm glow replaced by the cool encroachment of dusk. The whispers of the gathered crowd fell to a low murmur, infused with a mix of fear and hope. Clara felt the gravity of the moment, pulling everyone closer, yet casting shadows that threatened to pull them apart. Jack's voice sliced through the tension once more. We have stories in our town that need to be heard. They matter. They can guide us. His words bounced through the night air, each syllable drawing them into a shared history. Mabel shifted her weight, eyes glistening. I've lived here my entire life, and I never thought to ask. If we don't speak up, what will happen to our history, to our future? The weight of her question lingered as her frail figure seemed to stand taller, buoyed by the strength of connection. The young man who had challenged Jack earlier looked down, his face clouded with thought. I can't change the past, but maybe we can change how we remember it. There has to be a way to make it right, he murmured, vulnerability creeping into his voice. A ripple of agreement followed. Clara felt the atmosphere shift like the tides. In that moment, the realization formed. A shared grief could ignite shared purpose. Clara stepped forward, eager to grasp the flickering momentum. We can honor our history, but it begins with conversations, vulnerable ones. How many of us really know the stories of those who suffered? What if we asked those questions? What if we didn't shy away? Her heart raced, the energy palpable. What if we become the voices they didn't have? In the twilight, faces illuminated by the glow of a nearby lantern, people exchanged glances, sparks of acknowledgement flickering in their expressions. It was raw and unsettling, but it held promise. Someone chuckled softly, a tentative sound cutting through the thick atmosphere, easing the tension. Okay, but how do we even start? A woman in a bright floral dress rose to the challenge. We could form a group to document stories, bring them to light. A town project to honor our past while moving forward. It could be healing. Her enthusiasm was infectious, echoing off the faces now showing signs of intrigue. A chorus of voices combined, each person weaving their narratives into a patchwork of understanding. Pain into strength, one said. Future generations need to know, echoed another. The crowd was transforming, swelling with a newfound energy. Clara felt lighter, as if the burdens of the past were slowly lifting. The tough part is, Jack interjected, ensuring this isn't just talk. How do we get people involved? How do we keep it honest? His gaze swept across the crowd, searching for signs of commitment, of willingness. I've got family stories to share, Mabel volunteered shakily. And I know of others who can too. We just need to encourage them. Take this first step together. Every great journey begins with a single step, Clara added softly, sensing the shift toward unity. Her heart buzzed, alive with possibility, as the evening deepened. Let's ask questions. Let's open our hearts. Laughter mingled with tears as people began sharing childhood memories, moments of pain, and glimmers of joy. It wasn't just a gathering anymore. It was a communion, a promise to ensure no one was forgotten, no story left untold. Yet, despite the newfound camaraderie, a lingering fear pricked Clara's heart. Would they have the courage to see this through? And what would happen when the shadows of their histories loomed larger? As night fully descended, Clara couldn't shake a growing sense of urgency.
Real connections had been forged, yet scattered among hope was the fear of backlash, of unresolved pain bubbling beneath the surface. Would this shared resolve truly bring them closer, or was it merely a fragile flicker waiting to be snuffed out? The questions hung heavy in the air, her heart racing at the realization that they had only just begun their journey. What they needed now was not just courage, but determination and unity, and Clara would fight to ensure they found it. Clara stared into the crowd, feeling the weight of collective stories pressing against her. The night air was thick with emotions, hope, fear, and an unyielding desire for connection. She could see faces illuminated by the lanterns, each one reflecting a flicker of courage. Yet beneath the surface, uncertainty simmered. "Okay," Jack called out, breaking her reverie. "Let's make this more than a conversation. We need a plan. Who's willing to help organize this storytelling project?" His voice rang clear, resonating like a bell in the quiet night. Almost instinctively, Clara raised her hand, but before she could speak, others followed suit. The woman in the floral dress volunteered again. "I'll help with your ideas, Jack. We can create a list of names, people in town who have stories to tell." "Yes," Mabel chimed in, her enthusiasm infectious. "And we can host storytelling nights right here. Invite people in the community. We can create a safe space." The energy buzzed like electricity, filling the air. Clara felt her heart swell, urging her to speak. "We need to share not just the joyful stories, but the painful ones too. The ones that keep us up at night. Those are just as vital." A nod of understanding rippled through the group, but not everyone looked convinced. The young man who had spoken before frowned, uncertainty still etched on his face. "What if people don't want to share? What if it opens old wounds?" Jack nodded. "That's a valid concern. We can't force anyone, but if we approach it gently, if we're honest about our own struggles, it might inspire others." Clara took a deep breath, her heart racing with the weight of her thoughts. "What we really need is trust. That's the foundation of this journey. If they see that we're willing to be vulnerable, maybe it will encourage them." Mabel chimed in again. "Maybe we can start small, a coffee morning, just a handful of us to begin with, share our own stories and see where it leads." Laughter spilled from the crowd at the image of Clara with coffee in hand, easing the tension just a bit. She bit her lip, chuckling with them, before pressing forward. "But let's not forget why we are doing this," she added, voice steady now. "This isn't about us. It's about everyone who felt unheard, everyone who thought their pain was too small to share." The night deepened around them, and for a moment Clara was struck by the sight of so many souls converging toward a shared purpose. But a nagging whisper in her mind kept returning. What if they did it wrong? What if, in seeking connection, they ripped open wounds instead of healing them? The challenge of reconciling their past hung heavily over them, shadowing their budding efforts to move forward. Yet they were united now, their collective determination a weighty force. Someone shattered Clara's thoughts. "I say we set a date," a voice called, sparking a ripple of agreement. Clara could see the resolve settling like a blanket over the group. It felt tangible, thick with intention. As they began brainstorming dates and ideas, Clara's heart lightened. Hope surely flickered in her chest. Still, she couldn't quite shake her unease. Would their collective bravery endure when the shadows of truth emerged? Could they weather the storms sure to come when the past clashed with their present? "Let's meet again next week," Jack suggested, recapturing their focus. "Bring your ideas, your stories, anything we can use. We're going to hit the ground running." The crowd dispersed, excitement fizzing in the air like the sound of firecrackers. Clara hung back, her heart full yet troubled, wondering if they had truly grasped the enormity of what they were undertaking. As she turned to leave, a voice called after her. It was Mabel, eyes glinting in the dim light. "Clara, I'm so thankful you're stepping up," she said, warm sincerity bubbling in her tone. "Me too," Clara replied, though uncertainty still coiled in her stomach. She smiled, but a weight pressed down on her heart, warnings about the stories they had yet to uncover. The truth could be a powerful force, but would they be strong enough to face the consequences? With that thought echoing in her mind, Clara left the gathering, unease lingering in the shadows of her heart. What awaited them when the real stories took center stage? Would their fragile unity endure, or would it fracture under the weight of the past? Clara stepped out into the cool night, the stars scattered across the sky like 1,000 listening eyes. A soft breeze brushed against her skin, but it did little to ease the tightening in her chest. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground beneath her was urging her to reconsider the path they had chosen. While the excitement from the gathering buzzed in the air, Clara wrestled with a deep-seated fear. She thought about her own story, the hidden darkness that lingered in the corners of her mind. It was a shadow she had worked hard to keep suppressed, and now the idea of sharing it felt terrifying. Would that become her burden or a source of strength? She could hear Mabel's voice trailing behind her, light and warm. "Clara, wait up!" Mabel hurried to catch up, her cheerfulness almost infectious. "I know this is big for you. I don't get the feeling you're the nervous type." Clara forced a smile, but it faltered. "I guess it's just a lot to take in." Mabel paced beside her, her gaze steady and encouraging. "You know, it's okay to feel scared. I think we all are. But think about the difference we can make." They paused at the edge of the park, the lanterns flickering like fireflies. Clara could still see the faces of those who had shown up, how every person seemed to hold a piece of themselves in their hands, ready to open up. It was awe-inspiring, but also daunting. "Do you really think it will help them?" Clara asked, her voice small. "What if we just end up causing more pain?" Mabel nodded thoughtfully. "I believe it will. Sharing can be healing, even the hard stuff. Look at us. Just talking about it here has brought us together already." Clara couldn't argue with that. She remembered the laughter, the hopeful chatter, and even the moments of silence where they'd simply understood one another. But more than anything, she felt the weight of responsibility growing. She would be one of the voices, one of the faces who could change someone else's life. That was enormous. "Maybe we could take the first step together," Mabel suggested. "Share a story, together, at that first coffee morning. Just us." Clara felt a flicker of warmth, but fear clawed back. "What if my story isn't enough? What if it's too personal?" "Then it's your story to tell. It's real, and that's what matters. Everyone has a piece of their story that fits." Mabel's eyes sparkled with conviction. "Think of the relief. You don't have to carry it alone anymore." As they talked, Clara felt something crack inside her. Just a little. The thought of revealing her truth began to flicker like one of the lanterns, small yet bright. It felt like stepping onto fragile ground, but a part of her craved that release, the chance to let someone else know they weren't alone. "I never thought I'd want to share it," Clara admitted, feeling her walls waver slightly. "Then you should. This is bigger than us. It's about building something real." Mabel's tone was steady, reassuring. "And let me tell you, it will take strength to be vulnerable. But think how beautiful it will be." Clara took a breath, inhaling the cool air mixed with the scent of damp earth. For the first time, she felt the heaviness above her heart shift just a bit. Could it really be that simple? Could their gathering lead to something beautiful rather than painful? What if we create a safe space, a code maybe? Anyone can share and be heard without fear of judgment, Clara mused, her mind racing. "Yes!" Mabel clapped her hands, her enthusiasm brightening up the night. "That's it! We could set ground rules. Everyone can decide how much they want to share and when." The idea began to swell between them, pulsing with life, and Clara felt a glimmer of hope bridge the gap between uncertainty and something resembling excitement. As they turned to leave the park, a new determination set in Clara's heart. Maybe, just maybe, they could create something profound together. Yet the question lingered on her mind. Was she truly ready to open her own chapter, knowing it might change everything? When they entered the soft glow of her house, Clara looked back into the shadows of the night. Did they all realize the journey they were embarking on, and could it transform their lives forever? For a brief moment she hesitated. The stories she had tucked away might be more powerful than she ever imagined. But was she brave enough to face her own truths? Her journey into those uncharted waters was just beginning. The next morning was draped in soft golden light. Clara sat at her kitchen table with her coffee in hand, swirling the steam with her fingers. She couldn't shake the nervous energy buzzing inside her. Today was the day they would put their ideas into action. A part of her felt ready, while another part quaked at the thought of sharing her truth. She looked out the window, watching birds flit around the garden, their freedom a stark contrast to the cage of worry that wrapped around her heart. Mabel arrived promptly at 9, her bright smile cutting through Clara's fog of uncertainty. "Let's do this!" she exclaimed, her cheerfulness radiating in the quiet room. Clara offered a weak smile in return, her stomach churning. "Are you sure we're ready for this?" Clara asked, her voice breathy. "What if no one shows up? What if—" "Stop! We can't think like that," Mabel interrupted, hopping into a seat across from her. "Positive vibes only. Remember, this isn't just about us, it's about the community." Clara nodded, appreciating Mabel's unwavering enthusiasm, but the flutter of doubt persisted. She sipped her coffee, feeling the warmth spread through her. In that moment, she realized how much she craved connection. Perhaps sharing her story wasn't just about the burden. It could lead to understanding and healing, both for her and others. The morning heat crept in, and soon enough they set everything in motion. They arranged chairs in a circle, each one a safe harbor for someone to nestle into, ready to share or simply to listen. Clara felt the weight within her pulse, an electric current in the air as they prepared for the first gathering. Each fleeting thought of worry was swallowed by the eager anticipation humming in her veins. As the doorbell rang, Clara's heart raced. "That's the first one," she gasped, glancing at Mabel, who was bouncing on her toes. Clara opened the door to reveal a young woman named Jenna, her eyes wide and a tender smile on her face. "Hi, I saw the flyer and thought maybe this could help," she said, her voice soft yet resolute. "Absolutely, come in." Clara stepped aside, welcoming her into the space that felt like a cocoon of vulnerability and hope. One by one, others trickled in, some familiar, others strangers. The circle grew, and Clara's heart swelled with a cocktail of emotions, fear, excitement, and even a sense of belonging. It was happening. They were creating what they had envisioned, a sanctuary in which stories could dwell and grow. As they settled into their seats, Clara's gaze drifted over the group. Each face held a story waiting to unfurl, much like hers. The room felt alive, charged with the potential to spark transformation. Suddenly, everything felt starkly real and beautifully chaotic. "Welcome, everyone," Clara began, her voice trembling slightly, yet a fire ignited within her. "Thank you for being here. Today is about sharing, listening, and supporting each other without judgment." She paused to take a breath, glancing to Mabel, who beamed with encouragement. "Let's create a space where we can truly connect." The room was ripe with silence, looming like a promise. Clara's heart raced. Was she truly ready to dive in? What if her truth opened a floodgate, unearthing stories she had long buried? Jenna spoke first, her voice shaking but resolute. As she shared her experience with heartbreak, Clara felt a weight shift in the air, as if not just Jenna, but everyone shared in that heaviness. She realized this moment was undeniable. They weren't just existing, they were coming alive. When it was Clara's turn, time itself seemed to warp. The walls of her heart whispered to her, the echo of every moment she fought to suppress. Clara inhaled deeply. Could she really crack open that shell? Could her story truly be a lifeline for another? Her mouth trembled as she began. There has been times when I felt utterly lost, and what she had to say could change everything. Would she have the courage to face the fears rooted in her soul? Would sharing her vulnerabilities be the key to unlocking brighter tomorrows? Clara's voice trembled at first, but as she continued, it became clear. She spoke of her great-great-grandmother, the stolen legacy, and the heavy tapestry of pain woven through her family's history. "There's a story I carry that's not just mine," she began, eyes scanning the faces around her. "It belongs to those who came before me, who suffered, who fought, and who endured for a future they didn't get to see." The room was silent, each person hanging on her words. She continued, her heart racing. "Growing up, I felt the whispers of their pain, and it made me scared to step forward. I didn't want to burden anyone with my truth. I thought it was too small compared to what they suffered. But I realized it's not. We all have our stories. They matter. And standing here, I see that sharing might be the first step towards healing." Tears prickled at her eyes as she felt their understanding wrap around her like a warm quilt. The tension in the room eased slightly, as if they were all collectively breathing in the weight of her courage. Clara glanced over at Jenna, who nodded encouragingly, and it gave her strength. "I was terrified to speak because I thought, what if my truth isn't enough? What if the hurt I carry fades against a backdrop of stronger stories?" Clara paused, drawing in a shaky breath. "But today, I understand that every story contributes to the patchwork of who we are. We can't move beyond the past if we refuse to acknowledge it." As she finished speaking, a wave of silence washed over the group, but Clara felt the collective pulse of understanding in the room. And to her surprise, it was followed by gentle voices echoing their own stories, stories of heartache, healing, and hope. Jack stood next, his voice steady as he spoke about the hidden truths he had unveiled with Clara. This wasn't just about opening old wounds, it's about growing stronger together. He glanced around the room, locking eyes with each person. Our history needs to be seen for what it is, so we can shape a different future. More and more voices joined in, weaving a vibrant tapestry of shared experiences. Mabel shared a story from her childhood about how her family had owned their land through generations, but others had suffered under their family's shadow. "Acknowledging our past isn't about guilt," she said, "but about understanding how we can make sure it doesn't happen again." The energy shifted, turning nervousness into a palpable warmth. It was like the quilt they had worked on together, each piece colorful and distinct, but stitched together in beautiful unity. Clara felt her heart swell as people leaned in, connected by the raw openness enveloping them. As the session continued, Clara saw a familiar face appear at the door. It was the young man who had hesitated earlier. He stood there, uncertain yet curious. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice cautious, like a leaf teetering on the limb of a tree. "Please," Clara urged, her heart swelling, "we want to hear your story." He stepped forward, a mix of vulnerability and strength illuminating his features. "I didn't think I belonged here. I thought it was just women sharing their truths. But maybe it's time to acknowledge that I also carry my stories. I lost someone, an old friend. She was taken from me by a horrible act, and I never understood how to deal with it."
The room sat in rapt attention, every eye on him, every heart listening. Clara's smile deepened as he spoke about the power of validating pain. His admission sparked a gentle ripple. Others began to engage openly, sharing burdens and joys, fears and triumphs, unraveling the intricate threads of their lives. Before long, the air warmed with laughter and a shared blanket of understanding. Clara sighed, realizing the weight that had settled within her was lifting. They were no longer strangers sharing superficial pleasantries. They had banded together in a circle of trust, each stitch reinforcing their bond. As the gathering wound down, Clara felt an unexpected surge of hope. They were not finished. This journey had only begun. But today had shifted something monumental in their community. They had given voice to the silences that had stretched too long, and now they stood poised for real transformation. Mabel turned to Clara, her eyes bright with resolution. "We need to make this a regular gathering," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "This is our moment to create change." "Yes," Clara agreed, the joy bubbling inside her. "Let's invite more people, keep sharing stories, keep uplifting our community. Together, we can make it a healing space." A hum of agreement washed over them. Everyone seemed to light up at the idea. Hope glistened in their eyes like stars in a night sky. They had ignited a spark, and it felt powerful, electric, poised to spread into their town and beyond. As Clara cleaned up, she caught Jack's eye, and they exchanged a look filled with gratitude and determination. They had chosen the harder path, facing their past, but it was leading toward a brighter future. And amidst the uncertainty of what lay ahead, one thing was clear. They would navigate it together. "Let's keep moving forward," Clara whispered to Jack, an understanding blooming between them. "We've only just begun." With every conversation shared, every story unveiled, they were stitching together not just a quilt of healing, but a legacy that would harmonize the often painful melody of their past with the vibrant chorus of their hope for tomorrow. And as the sun dipped below the horizon again, Clara knew they had stepped onto a new path, one that breathed hope into their community, uplifted their spirits, and reminded them that through vulnerability, transformation awaited. It was the beginning of something truly beautiful. Now was the time to unite and thrive. And as you reflect on this journey, take action. You need to subscribe now, because the next stories will be even more impactful. Leave a like immediately to help us feed the algorithm and support this transformation. Comment below your thoughts and feelings on Clara's journey, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear these messages of strength and hope. Together, let's build a community that thrives on connection and understanding.